That's right. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 34 for Thursday, February 11th, 2016. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm joined, as always, in the PETM podcast studio by Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's happening, man?
Well, we finally did something different.
We did do something a little different.
Or we are doing something different.
Yeah, we're doing something crazy, a little outside of our league today. I don't even know what to say. I'm sort of shaking a little bit. I'm going a little crazy. But we do have, first off, guys, we've got a huge announcement coming up. It's huge for us. We're pretty excited about it. We're proud of it. But before we get to that announcement, even cooler, perhaps in my book, we've got somebody on the line, don't we?
Yeah. Well, we've got a NASCAR competitor is willing to talk to us on the podcast today with 50 national touring starts in the top 3 series of NASCAR.
He is the 2005 Virginia State Legends Pro Champion, 2009 Teen Mazda West Coast Champion, 2011 NASA SU National Champion. He's driven in the Truck Series, in the XFinity Series, in the Sprint Cup Series, and he is our first guest with a Wikipedia page. Let's welcome to the show, Ryan Ellis. What's happening, man?
Hey, not much. How are you guys today?
We're doing awesome. It is so exciting to have you on as among our first guests. But like I said, we feel legitimized with a Wikipedia page. How did you feel the first time you saw that?
I thought my mom had made it. I wasn't quite sure of how I got into the status that I was worthy of a Wikipedia page, but it was pretty cool. I think my first NASCAR start, I think someone just automatically builds them all. So it was pretty cool that, and getting the Twitter check mark and all that. They're all little steps that don't mean much in reality, but they're still pretty cool.
Well, if it doesn't legitimize it for you, it certainly legitimizes it for us who get to talk to you, to say, hey, look at this guy we get to talk to. We can point at him and show pictures of him and everything else. We start the podcast off in the same way every week for 34 weeks straight now, and that's with what you're drinking, and just something fun we like to do. I'm sitting here drinking a local IPA from our Terrapin brothers. It's called Hopsecutioner. That's their main one. Sherwin, you got something on?
I think I'm drinking the same beer.
You're drinking the exact same beer.
Yeah, I'm drinking the same beer.
Ryan, what you drinking on today?
I actually literally just poured a Bacardi and Coke.
Attaboy.
So
all right.
I guess I can join you on that one.
That's cheers, man.
Excellent.
That's our first guest to actually be drinking an adult beverage alongside with it. I didn't check your age on the Wikipedia page, but I'm assuming that this is kosher to go online with.
Yeah, otherwise I would say it was juicy juice or something
right.
like that.
Juicy juice.
There you go.
Man, so tell us about what you're doing right now and what you're up to. Fans want to know what's Ryan Ellis all about.
Yeah, this part of the year is pretty tough. It's a lot of just sending sponsorship proposals or meetings and that kind of stuff. So a lot of unsure plans right now, but I'm getting ready for Daytona next week with the 28 FTNY Chevy. I've been doing that I think this is my 3rd year in that truck, and we almost had a top 10 last year. I think we were 4th with 5 or 6 laps to go and blew the motor up. So going in with some high hopes for Daytona. But outside of that, I have a contract signed. Unfortunately, I can't say anything about it yet, but it is a pretty big deal. It's probably the biggest deal I've ever had in my life. So we're really excited to have that, and we'll be able to announce that in 2 weeks. And on side of that, we're probably just doing some more Xfinity and truck stuff, but that's stuff I kind of find out as the year goes on.
You kind of talked about it a little bit. What's your day-to-day right now like, especially coming up into Daytona? I know you said looking out for sponsorship and send out sponsorship stuff. How about with the truck and with the car and stuff? What is it that you do on a day-to-day basis? I think we get a lot of insight, probably from the media on what these Jimmy Johnson and Dale Jr. and what those guys are up to. But really the hardworking guys, I'll say, like yourself. What are y'all up to right now?
Yeah, I'm sure they're up to a little bit different things, going to the Super Bowl and hanging out every day.
Right.
But for me, it was going to, and this winter I went to Salt Lake City and met with my sponsor, Science Logic, and did a 45-minute motivational speech, which was something very different for me. I hadn't done a speech like that since probably high school or college. So I had to prepare that. That took up a lot of my time, and building proposals and logistics and trying to stay in shape. Yeah, I'm picking up dog poop since we got the puppy just before Christmas. But outside of that, the glamorous life of a NASCAR driver, right?
What's the puppy's name?
Andy, after the character on Parks and Recreation, Andy Dwyer. I don't know if you guys have seen that show.
Okay. I'm not a watcher of that, but our famed producer, the Serena over here, is laughing her butt off and giving us a thumbs up approval on that.
Oh,
one.
Really?
And he's adorable.
That's awesome. Yeah, that character was actually framed after a personality, played by Chris Pratt, so we think it fits him pretty well.
Yeah, I do know who that is. What races are? Do you know which races you're going to be in this year, or a few of the ones, or are we allowed to talk about it?
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it yet. One of the races that I'll be in is one of, I guess I could sneak it. It's one of the biggest races of the NASCAR season, period. I'd say it's one of the 3 biggest races of the season. So I'll be in that. I know I can't leak it, unfortunately.
Hey, excellent.
One thing been done for
one thing we like here in the podcast world is teasers.
Yeah, right. Speculate all you want.
Right.
But we got 3 races definitely done right now, and we're working on much more. I think we'll have it done by the time the announcement comes out. And outside of that, we're just kind of piecing it all together. I think we might have a race at Spring Richmond in the Xfinity series, and after that, it literally is like I'll get a call 2 days before we show up at the race and say, "Hey, Ryan, we don't have a sponsor this weekend. You want to drive?"
And the answer to that is yes, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I moved down to North Carolina. I wanted to be close enough to the race shops that I could just drive on over in 5 minutes and hop out there and get fitted for a car. Because there's been a few rides in my life where they said, hey, pretty much first driver that gets here is in the seat. And when I lived in Northern Virginia, I didn't have that option.
Wow. I didn't even realize that was a thing.
I don't know that I'm super shocked by that, but it's still shocking to hear.
Yeah. Especially in this day and age of
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So it's all about networking. I mean, I didn't realize that kind of stuff happened either.
But before we get way too deep into the NASCAR stuff, I want to make sure we don't forget to hit the fact that you're a huge ice hockey player. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm actually watching the Washington Capitals game right now in the background. They're playing the Minnesota Wild. But I play at least twice a week, usually Wednesdays and Sundays, which actually works out really well with my racing schedule. So just a matter of playing in a league where it's competitive, but not competitive enough that I'm going to get hurt or get in a fight. Because back when I lived in Northern Virginia, it was a lot worse, and the leagues are a lot more competitive, and there were fights all the time, and I was always involved in them. So I'm really happy I can kind of tone that down a little bit.
So you a Capitals fan then?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, huge Caps fan.
Oh man, me and the producer Serena here used to have partial season tickets to the Thrashers. And, of course, Capitals and Thrashers would butt heads plenty. But, of course, you still have a team, so I guess that lets you get something in the win column.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you guys got the Jets now if you're still sticking on that franchise. But,
no.
Man, it really sucked to see the Atlanta franchise go away.
Yeah, we were bummed. It's real fun to watch. And I guess we're getting a soccer team, and me and Sherwin are both on the what do you call that, Founders Club for that. So
all in on Atlanta United.
Getting a few more sports, but yeah, missing the hockey for sure. Especially, every time I see some highlights on ESPN or watching videos, I got nobody to root for, and so yeah, it's tough. And they make it hard too because everybody that you hated before, the Hurricanes, the Miami or the
Tampa Bay or Nashville.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, Nashville, Washington. You're like, man, I can't root for any of them.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, it's kind of hard, I guess, once you have a team to go and root for someone that you rooted against. I've been having to do that a little bit with the Panthers in this area and trying not to bandwagon, just with the success of the football team in North Carolina, but we never really had a team up in Virginia except for the Redskins. I don't know if we'd really consider that much of a team most years.
Well, Dale Jr. would, but I think he's one of the only ones.
I won't tell that to him.
I think back on it, so I think some of these changes that NASCAR has been talking about in the last few weeks, really, are really going to be affecting the series that you're driving. And I wanted to see what, especially a driver, is thinking when it comes to things like the shot clock, as we're calling it, and the playoff system. Let's start with the shot clock. We've talked about it here on the podcast, and we're lukewarm. Brian France famously kind of said, and he says a lot, just try it and see what you think. And I think I was on the side eventually that, okay, I'll try it and see what I think. And Sherwin might have been a little bit more abrasive, but but it's all right. I wanted to hear from a driver's perspective. What do you think?
I think you got to look at it one of two ways. You can either say I hate the concept and say, racing's racing, just let the events unfold the way they should, or I think you can look at it the way it's been happening with the debris cautions and how I guess unpredictable those were, and they seem to happen at times that really affected the race. At least now we have a clock that we know. Instead of getting a randomized caution, we're going to say, okay, well, this is when the caution is going to happen. Now you can't question it. Now you know it's coming. It's not favoriting one person or the other. As long as the debris cautions go away, then I think it's a positive change, because at least it's putting some predictability in that. I would rather just see us run the race out, obviously, but I would prefer the shot clock, caution clock, or whatever we're going to call it, over the random debris cautions, because I think that affected some drivers more than others, whereas now you can actually build a strategy around a predictable shot clock.
Very cool. And how about the playoff system? I mean, and I didn't spend enough time. Sherwin's sitting there shaking his head like, man, that's awesome to hear.
Love to have the perspective of a competitor when there's a rule change that drives a lot of polarity amongst the fans.
Yeah, for sure. And
yep. I understand both sides as well, but I think you'll see a lot of guys pitting like 30 seconds before the caution clock comes out, because, then if everybody doesn't pit, then you're going to the front of the line, or if everybody does pit 30 seconds later, you're going to the front of the line. So it could just create some interesting strategy. But as far as the playoff system goes in Chase and Truck and Xfinity, I think it'll be different, because in Cup you kind of have those defined people that, they're on the fence, they're on the, they could be in, could be out. But in Truck and Xfinity, some of those names are a lot lesser known. You might see someone like a Ray Black or even a Ryan Sieg in Xfinity sneak in one way or another, and that could just create a little bit more excitement. Depends on the races that are actually in the playoffs right now. I'm not even sure what's in the Truck and Xfinity Chase, but you'll just see a lot of names in the Chase that you probably have never heard of if you're just a casual fan. So it should be pretty exciting. I think you'll see a lot more excitement with the younger guys that are in a playoff system, and probably a lot more wrecks, which everybody loves.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing Ryan Ellis in that list soon enough.
Yeah, for sure. And Ryan, you hit on
gotta find a full-time ride.
For sure.
You hit on something that strikes a chord with me, because I think one of the things I've been saying, and I probably haven't been saying it very well because I'm not super eloquent, is that I think one of the biggest things about the National Touring Series, the top 3 series in NASCAR, is the green flag pit stop, because of how much strategy you can put into it. Obviously, in terms of performance, under yellow, the pit crew is so much more under the gun, because you're talking about tenths of seconds. But what you said about, okay, well, with the shot clock, you could maybe come 1 or 2 laps early, take it easy on your tires, and all of a sudden you're out front, and that's a whole new thing. But you know what that incorporates for me is the green flag stop, and I think that's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just going to be interesting. And unfortunately or fortunately, I'll be one of the first people to try it out, obviously with the Truck Series being the first race of the year and us being the only series to have that this year. It'll be interesting because, I'm going to tell our team about it. They're a part-time team, and our average pit crew is, I think the average age of them is like 61 or 62. It's an all-volunteer team. So I don't think green flag pit stops are going to benefit us much. So we'll try to play as much strategy as we can. But I think the plate races will be the most exciting. You might see someone like a Norm Benning or a Genjo Cobb, a really lesser-known name, take the lead if they run their strategy right.
That's really cool, and we're both pumping our fists a little bit thinking about that. That's something I didn't think about with all this, is definitely getting more exposure for some of the lesser-known teams.
I think that's great.
Yeah, I think it's so unpredictable right now, and no one knows really what's going to work, that I think a couple of people will fall into the right strategy just by kind of guessing at it.
Ryan, what else you do for fun? Let's have fun with this one. You talked about hockey.
Yeah, play hockey. Hang out with friends quite a bit. A lot of the NASCAR drivers: Matt Benedetto, Tanner Berryhill, Alex Bowman, Jeffrey Earnhardt, and go on iRacing quite a bit and do a lot of simming with fans. And outside of that, I really don't do much. I just try to save money and send proposals and drive in circles a little bit more.
Man, that's so cool. And you talked about iRacing, so we've actually hooked up with a couple of the fellas. Matter of fact, I think his name is Mike Ellis, which is kind of funny because I said Mike in the pre-show one point. So
yeah, Mike Dean Ellis.
Yeah, Mike Dean Ellis. Yeah. Are you familiar with him at all?
No, there's a lot of Ellises out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I get confused with quite a bit of them. And there's actually another Ryan Ellis that plays in the NHL. So,
and so that was
I'm
what
the
was
second
funny.
most famous Ryan Ellis, I guess, in the world.
I was telling my wife because she was looking up some stuff. She says, "I think he plays hockey for fun," and I said, "Well, I don't know if that's like a Wikipedia confusion or what. I know there's a Ryan Ellis who's a hockey player.
I knew he played at George Mason, and I told him, via email that one of the things he puts in his sort of like his signature in his email is that he was Greek at George Mason. I said, well, that would be one of the things we could potentially talk about because we were both Greek at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, there's like you can talk about it and you can't talk about it.
I didn't know that. Well, that's cool, guys. What fraternity?
Tau Kappa Epsilon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we had that at our school as well.
Yeah, if you can't go Greek, go Teak, like to say.
Yeah, right.
But,
You're a Kappa Sigma,
that is
right?
a phrase that I've heard quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah. My dad called it Tap a Keg. He was probably more right than
the Greek part.
we would be willing to admit.
Oh.
Yeah, I've heard that one quite a bit, too. There's a lot of nicknames for a lot of Greek, fraternities, sororities, a lot of them which we probably can't or shouldn't say on the air.
Correct. Yeah, I think we're left in a dead space here. Would you care at all to discuss the new overtime rule that NASCAR announced today with the way they're going to handle green-white checkers?
Yeah, I think out of everything, I probably have up front, I guess I have the smallest opinion on this. I just think it's good for the sport, and I don't know if anybody's opposed to it. I honestly don't like the name because I think green-white checkered is a racing term, so we don't need to brand it something differently. But the concept itself I like because I've always been a fan of racing, and it's like ending in a tie in other sports. You want to give the fans a finish, and the only way to give them a finish is to get to the finish. So I hated like the Talladega, I think, incident when they just did that 2 or 3 restarts and they all crashed and never really got to run at it. Yeah. So I think this is a lot better. I wish they just kind of left green, white, checkered.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think, and what I saw right before I left the house, I think Jim Utter had tweeted that they were actually painting the line, the overtime line on the backstretch, about halfway down the backstretch of Daytona tonight. And to me, that feels a lot different than what I thought it was when I initially read the rule. But when I back up, I think, if people are upset about the gimmickiness of what they have been doing with these green-white checkers at restrictor plate racing without kind of stepping back and saying, hey, you know what, restrictor plate racing is kind of a gimmick in its own right, a much bigger gimmick. So why not have some rules that maybe introduce some things that are a little weird? Yeah,
absolutely. And I hate all the lines that are going to end up on racetracks. It's going to look like kind of a mess. But it's good to set that defined line and to put a quantifiable thing out there where it's not just a judgment call anymore, and fans can say, yes, they got to that line, or yes, or no, they didn't. So as much as I hate the fact that we're painting lines every which way on the racetracks, it's actually good for the sport. It takes away a lot of the question and conspiracy theories that everyone has.
So I had one more crazy, nebulous, floating around in the extremity thoughts that about restrictor plate racing is, in order to create some more space between these cars so we don't have these crazy weird wrecks, particularly in the Cup Series, within, if you divide a line that's if you divide a distance, it's 400 yards long, and you put the start finish in the middle. What if we sped up the pace car on the lights out caution lap to like 100 or 120 miles an hour? Would that help at all?
I think you just might make it happen, the wreck happen a little bit quicker, because I think obviously it'll take away a little bit of that. It'll take away the crashes of just inherently missing a shift. But a lot of the big crashes are ones that, once they get up to speed, they're all 4 or 5 wide. So maybe it'll take away the runs that they're getting. I have a feeling that, at the end of the day, they're probably going to crash one way or another. And usually it's just a product of everybody getting desperate. So I think as long as we have plate racing, we could change it 100 which ways, but it'll probably always end up the same way, unfortunately. It's just a matter of how and when and how many guys wreck in the pack.
That's why getting the opinion of a competitor matters.
Right. Ryan, what's your favorite racetrack? What do you like?
Up until this year or last year, I would have said probably Dover or any road course in the world. But I think after running Bristol, I ran both the Xfinity and the truck race there last year. I have to admit, I had no idea what I was doing there for the first half of the truck race. And I finally got in a groove about halfway through and ran the top line that they're running now quite a bit and just loved it. It was so much fun to get in a rhythm there. And I think a driver can make a little bit more of a difference at a track like Bristol, and that's what you want. You want a track that you actually have to drive. A lot of the mile and a halves we go to nowadays, we're barely out of the throttle. It's all aerodynamics, motor, and it doesn't take much talent to really just point the car when you're not lifting, especially in the truck series. So it's nice to be able to go out there and brake and have to, change lines depending on how your car is handling. So a track like Bristol, any road course, Dover, those tracks you have to be on top of the wheel. And it's just a ton of fun, and the drivers really come out.
I've never really thought about that. Until you see these drivers come out and they get introduced, and everybody's cheering for them and everything. And to think that there's a handful of them that are like, I have no idea what I'm doing at this track. What am I doing? It's like, wow, that's pretty. That's going out there. I love it.
Yeah, it was. I thought I knew what I was doing. I was like, man, I don't know if the car's off or I'm off. And when you're out there, you're, even your first time at the track, you're trying to set the car up in like 1 or 2 laps so you're not burning up tires, especially on these lower funded teams. So you're trying to learn the track in 40 seconds, and so you're hitting each corner maybe twice at most.
Yeah.
So you don't get a lot of time to get in rhythm when you're on a low budget. And it just kind of clicked all at once. And that happens a lot when you're a racer. It's not necessarily baby steps. You just kind of wonder, you're like, oh, holy crap, that I've been doing it wrong my whole life and figured it out. That was the one track. I'm sure Darlington will be the same way when I get out there for my first time there. But that track took me a long time to get used to. And every other track, like Texas, Charlotte, you do 2 laps and you're like, okay, I got this track. It's pretty easy. And you don't really want that as much in this sport. Obviously, you want the more challenging tracks, so it's nice to have the throwbacks like a Darlington or a Bristol.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems like, some of the guys that have been outspoken have been like Brad Keselowski and Carl Edwards. Both have been huge proponents of making the car more difficult to drive. And obviously they mostly drive in the Cup Series, but I would imagine that some of that same philosophy would transfer to both Xfinity and trucks, in that you want to be riding around and knowing that your level of experience and superiority as a driver is the reason why you're beating the people around you, and not just that your team nailed the aero setup on a car or a truck. Yeah, and it's a pretty helpless feeling. Like, I know I've driven 4 or 5 different trucks at Texas Motor Speedway, and they literally all of them been flat out. They all drove the same. They all like, oh, I guess we could loosen it up a little bit, but there's nothing else I can do outside of that. And I've been anywhere from like 8th to barely making the race. But nothing I've done has been any different, but just a matter of better motor, better car. And when you're not lifting, it's not a lot of talent that goes into it. It's just literally pointing the car. And I really hate that in the trucks. I know we need to take a lot of aero away from those, because they're really, really easy to drive comparative, especially to the Cup cars.
So if they're complaining about it in the Cup side, I know if they were to get in some of the middle of the run trucks, they would probably not have a very good time.
Well, we've pointed to the truck race at Charlotte last year, the Memorial Day weekend race, where the guy that we root for in the Cup Series was able to keep what was obviously a slower truck in front of Eric Jones because he knew more about how to manage the draft and more about how to manage not destroying the truck while having it pitching sideways all over the place. Where does that come into play? Is that exactly what you're speaking to, that it's just too easy to drive?
Yeah, I mean, I just think a lot of these guys, they get in the top stuff, and I don't think any car or truck I've ever driven has ever seen a wind tunnel. If it has, maybe not more for an hour. And a lot of these guys, their cars or trucks spend weeks there, pull down rigs, and they're, usually the teams I'm driving for have a lot of guys do like this. So, they only have one or two trucks in the whole team, and I drove the same truck at Bristol, Mosport in Canada, and like the mile and a half. And they're very, very different trucks. So I think it's a lot of it's budget, but the truck, I mean, they do punch a bigger hole in the air. So you lose downforce a lot easier when you're behind someone. And the downforce is what packs you into the ground and is what keeps the truck underneath you. So as soon as you get behind someone, they're just really, really hard to race at some of the faster tracks.
You said something that really distracted me there. You said that you ran the same truck at Bristol that you ran at an Emma Turner track, Canada Mosport. Tell us about what are the challenges of running the same chassis at those kind of racetracks?
I mean, there's a lot of challenges, obviously, but a lot of it goes to body and the skew in the chassis and body itself. You want your body to be kind of bent up for an oval and favoring the right rear quarter so that you actually get a lot of air on there and it kind of holds you in place. But you want pretty much the opposite at a road course. You want it dead straight and narrow, and you need the equal amount of side force on both sides. So it's very, very hard to go take a car or a truck that's good at a short track and have it be good at a mile and a half. And obviously it's just as hard to have it on a road course. So I know a couple guys that have had, they drove the same truck at Eldora as they did at Canada. So I know that, the Jordan Anderson story is pretty public, but that's the case with probably 10, 15 teams in the back half of the field, that they literally just kind of change the setup on it and keep running the same truck. Which
makes it so much more cool to me, and especially now that, I'm going to be watching those guys, especially that, when they do creep up and get a top 10 or something, or especially on these tracks like Daytona, Talladega, where, anything can happen. It's roll the dice there. That's especially cool to me.
Well, I think the short track Saturday night fans would this is where they could really climb on, is if they get to hear things like this, that there's adversity there because you have a limited amount of money to spend, but then you're capitalizing on opportunity and you're having success. Like I ran a dirt course truck, an oval dirt, at Eldora, and then I took that same truck and I went to Mosport and got a top 10 with it there. To me, that's how you drive it, interest in people that really love racing. I'm astounded by what you've told us so far, Ryan. I'm stuttering.
It is kind of cool just to see the backside. Like I said, my team next week, it's composed of everybody but two people as volunteers. Two of the guys are the engine builder, and outside of that, the whole team is just the same group of guys that just go out, and they're all volunteer firefighters. Pretty much every day of the year, and their days off, they come out and field a NASCAR Camping World Truck Series truck. And we have two guys that do it every week, and the rest of them kind of just go out there and follow command and do a great job and just have fun. And I think that's what, especially the Truck Series, that's what it should be, is more the short track people, guys that are having fun, the good old boys, as they say, out there and fighting for national attention.
That's so cool. If you ever need a spotter, I think you
particularly at a road course where you need like two of them.
I made that phone call yesterday, so you're about a day late on that. Otherwise,
maybe next time.
You
Ryan, do you have any pre-race or pre-race rituals? Anything cool that you do right now?
You do, but like typically, especially in NASCAR, it's the stuff happens so quickly that it's hard to have any ritual that you can stick to, because we go from qualifying, especially in the trucks and Xfinity cars, we go from qualifying to we have about a half hour off, driver's meeting, driver intros, straight into the car. So you're like, you don't have much leeway in schedule. I know it seems like a long time on TV, but typically you're talking to sponsors all the way up until you get in the car, and that's kind of your moment just to take a deep breath and drink some water and kind of think about the actual race at hand. But it's tough because it is so much a business nowadays that you have to handle the business side way more than the racing side, even at the track. I know that at my Phoenix debut, we had 18 guests of Science Logic, and I spent 8-9 hours of the rain delay sitting in an RV talking about every which side of racing, and just kind of giving them tours of the garage area. And, you know, up until we literally had like 3 minutes till we had to take off, I was taking photos and taking pictures with everyone. And it's a lot different than what most people see, I think, on TV, especially on the backside of the pack.
That's very good to know. I understand you're amazingly busy. So there's one more thing I wanted to ask. I think Rusty and I both have one more question. My question has to do with health and fitness. And do you monitor what your body's doing during the race? Like, do you use a heart rate monitor, and do you try to plan your workouts to simulate what it's like to be in the race car for an hour and a half or 2 hours, or it could be 4.5 hours if you're in a cup car?
Yeah, I try to do that as best as possible. I'm not fully aware of what the electronics inside race car roll is, so I've avoided heart rate monitors and everything else, so I don't get fined, because if I get fined, I probably can't afford the fine.
Sure.
But I haven't had like any of the technology inside of the car. But as far as workouts off the track, I go to the gym probably 4, 5, 6 days a week. Just do standard lifting. Not quite like the Josh Wises and the Jimmy Johnsons where they're training for triathlons or anything like that. I play hockey to stay in shape, and typically I box 4 or 5 days a week as well, which is, I think, the best workout you could possibly do. It's a full body core workout, and it's perfect for racing. I mean, you want to have your whole body in good cardio shape, and it helps to have muscle. But I think as long as you can keep your body well sustained in all the heat and through the strenuous environment that you're in, you'll be fine. But as soon as your body gets tired in the car, your mind gets tired. And as soon as your mind gets tired, you're missing apexes, and you're missing inches on entry, which end up being feet on exit.
And somebody should frame that quote that you just said and put it up every time somebody says, these guys aren't athletes. I mean, that's more true to true to an athlete than anything. In any sport, just like that. So, not that I'm trying to make that argument right now, but that really that was great right there. I appreciate that. The one last question.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, I mean, like, I've noticed that more often than anything else. So we know some cars are hotter than others, depending on the team and how well insulated the cars are. But, I mean, as soon as your body gets tired and you're hot and you start realizing that you're hot, it's hard to focus just because your body is kind of like in limp mode. It's just trying to survive. And you're not able to attack the corners the way you should. So you might not be able to hit your marks. You might not be able to get a run on someone. So it's more about staying in physical shape to keep your mind in the right place than it is anything else.
That's really cool to hear.
I think that's what Max Pappas has been saying for years, that it's taken a lot of the mainstream fandom or media or whatever you want to say to it's taken us a while to adjust to it. It's not that you necessarily look like a physical specimen. It's that, are you in shape enough so your brain stays in top order the entire race?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets hot. You lose like 15 pounds of water weight every time you're out there, and it gets to you. You feel like you're hungover every time you get out of the car, and the first thing you want to do, ironically, is have a drink.
Yeah. So, last question. We always ask everybody this as they're leaving, and I really like the question. It's if you could change one thing in NASCAR. And I leave it open-ended. I don't know if it means butts in the seats. I don't know if it means eyeballs on the TV, or I don't know if it means you get to drive more races. But if you could change one thing in NASCAR, what would you change?
I'll give you two different answers because I think there's two things I think that would be really cool to see. I think it'd be cool if racing today was very similar to IROC of the old days where we kind of just drew pills. And I know manufacturers and people are very brand loyal, but to know that someone, everybody had the same equipment out there and the best driver is going to come into play would be really, really cool. I know the top drivers are still the top drivers no matter what. Like the top guys are going to rise to the top, and the guys that are winning championships are obviously great drivers. But I think if you were to change the equipment around, you'd see very different results in a lot of places. So, I'd love to see us just draw pills, like one race a year, just to kind of prove a concept. Like, hey, say the All-Star race, everybody races, but we all switch rides. We just draw them out of a hat. Odds are if I'd probably get, I'd draw like the sixth, or I'd draw Norm Benning's truck or something. So I wouldn't get very good luck. But I think that'd be cool. But I've told a lot of people that I wish that NASCAR had one series that was 10 races, or 10 races on dirt, 10 races on a road course, and 10 races on ovals.
Wow.
And for each 10 races, we had different cars. I wish for the road courses, we ran like a prototype or an IndyCar type series, and we ran like World of Outlaw 410 sprints or midgets or a rallycross or a hill climb type series, and just like some kind of world series of racing where completely different types of cars out there, completely different driving styles, and to see who excelled at what type of racing, what type of car fit, what type of driver. And I think you just see various different styles of racing. It'd be very exciting. See some V8 supercars, maybe on a road course as our road course car. But I think for different types of tracks, you need different types of cars. Not one type of car is going to be exciting on every surface, no matter how much we change aero. So I just think it'd be really, really cool to see a series where we just switch cars wholesale, because we already have different cars, so why not just, I know budget would be insane, but I just think it'd be so freaking cool to see the top drivers in the world run three different types of cars.
Man, if you didn't give me goosebumps on the first answer, because me and Sherwin have sat through some IROC races and just had a blast. The second answer, I got chicken skin on top of goosebumps.
Yeah, I think
thinking about that. I've never even thought about that or heard of that before.
The NFL of American stock car racing would be what you just described.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't mean like in terms of what the NFL product is, but in terms of the drawing the eyes, what you would need for a series like that, and how exciting it would be if you could have right and left sport cars, and you could have dirt sprint, either winged or not, or dirt late model winged or not, and then have a different car you race at Daytona, obviously, and then a different car you race at your cookie cutters, and then a short track. I'd watch that. I'd watch the hell out of that.
It'd be cool. Think about it. Like super lates at South Boston one week. Next week we're running 410 sprints at Eldora. Then we're off at Mid-Ohio running Indy cars or prototypes. And I know we'd have to put some kind of cost structure in there, but it would just be so cool. And I think you wouldn't be arguing about one Kyle Larson's going to win or a driver like that. Or Boris said, I think those guys would be just phenomenal at it. And it'd be cool to see a guy like Keselowski out there in a sprint car, or just kind of way out of their element and see who rose to the top.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And that's what's so cool about what you're proposing. Let's forget about the budget. The budget doesn't matter. Let's talk about what, as a race fan, what you would want the most of. You just described it. Like, if I had to make some notes about what I wanted to see happen in American stock car racing, I don't need to make any more notes. You just dictated it.
That's right.
I know that, I'm a driver, so I never think about the owner side of things. So I know that every owner would absolutely kill me for even proposing an idea like that. But they're spending enough money. Look at a guy like Gene Haas. I'm sure that's not going to kill him.
He is flushing pallets of $100 bills for that F1 team.
Man.
Exactly, yeah. I think it'd be like saving him money at that point. I mean, even like, I would die to race like an off-road Baja truck just 1 week just to see how cool that would be, or I don't know, anything like that. I just want to give everything a shot. Chili Bowl would be like our grand finale or championship race.
Hell yeah.
Man, all right, Sherwin. The first time we finally monetize this thing, all the money's going toward Ryan Ellis in that car.
Well, how do we convince Gene Haas to
Or just
stop
give me a
worrying
ride.
about
If you give me a
F1
ride,
and just
I'd be
give
happy.
all that money to this series that Ryan wants to start?
Yeah, right? Oh, man. I can't
Let's do a Kickstarter campaign. We can get it started.
That's
Heck yeah.
yeah, that's a worthy cause. Ryan, it's been like 42 minutes, and I can't believe we've been able to have a NASCAR driver on here for that long. So, man, I can't tell you how much we've appreciated this and how much fun this is, and I hope to do it again sometime. I know you're in the middle of the season, is going to be busy, but we'd love to catch up again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if you guys ever want anybody else on the air, I got all the non-famous guys' phone numbers. So just let me know whoever you want to talk to, and I got all the B-list NASCAR celebrities.
Well, I think what we'd like to do, Ryan, is when you're prepared to announce your relationship with the teams you're going to be involved with this year, we'd love to have you back on, right after that to help you promote. And if you want to get, some of the guys that you may have just mentioned and have a group effort, I think that would be fun too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I could get those guys on the air, and I think 2 weeks to today, the announcement will probably be posted. I think it'll be either that Wednesday or Thursday of that week, and we can try to make the announcement on the show.
Fantastic.
That would be awesome.
Fantastic. Well, Ryan, this has been a blast. We really appreciate you coming on. We're humbled that you're doing this. Enjoy the Bacardi.
Yeah, I hope the Bacardi and Coke was
Well,
good.
already,
My bourbon and Coke is almost gone.
Yeah, I'm close to my bourbon straight here. But we'll catch up with you next.
Then.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you next time. We'll definitely contact you about next track we go to and everything. So you take care, man.
Okay, perfect. And let me know whenever you guys are at the racetrack. And thanks again for having me on. Honored to be your first NASCAR guy on.
Man, love you to death.
Us more than you, trust me.
Yeah, you take care now.
All right, thank you. You too, guys.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Man, how cool was that?
How about that? How long are we allowed to nerd out on our own podcast?
I don't know. Sit here and I hear high five. How about one of those? There we go. So that was I don't even know where to start.
We just had a driver.
Cool. A driver. And talking about driving stuff and the type of stuff that you just don't hear anywhere else. What's he like to see? What would you like to do? Just crazy harebrained ideas? Holy crap.
Oh, he had some really good ones. I tell you what, if he gets to
Get some
figure
traction.
out the series, this is the new NASCAR series. We're going to do this, this, and this. Now, guess what? Ryan Ellis has got it figured out. And
Yeah,
I can't imagine not liking watching those races. Yeah, watching all those guys climbing 410s and kind of sling around Knoxville Speedway up there in Iowa, or getting a truck and sling it around Eldora, or get in like a sports car and go around Road Atlanta,
Or getting a Legends car and drive it around the bull rings.
or a Legends at one of the 3 bull rings that already exist under Bruton Smith's fold at Texas and Atlanta and Charlotte, and I believe Kentucky has one. I think Vegas does too. Mm-hmm. They could have the touring bull ring series with the little Legends car.
Man, that's too much fun.
All that stuff was cool as hell.
Too much fun.
And he plays hockey.
And he plays hockey. Let's move on to while we're just talking about fun stuff. Let's make our big announcement. You ready to do it?
Yeah, do it. Do it.
I mean, so I keep pumping this thing up and everything, but we're actually really happy for it because it represents the next level and where we're trying to get to. We actually officially have a website, y'all. I know we've been doing it on the
Touchdown.
That's right. We've been doing it on the blog thing and all that, but now we have an official website. It's www.petmpodcast.com. Go there. You can find all the links and everything. We're going to put show notes on there. We've got all kind of stuff we're going to put on there. I'm not going to say it's under construction because it's fully functional right now.
No, it's a live, living human
but we're
thing.
going to be continuing to evolve what goes on there. If you want your sticker, I've got the picture of the sticker on there, and you can just email us, tweet us, Facebook us on that. And remember, y'all, just email us, tweet us, Facebook us. We'll send you one.
Right, look here. I got a Ziploc bag full of stickers I want to give to y'all. All right, there's only a couple of y'all watching on the Periscope, but listen on the radio. Look here on the radio. I got a Ziploc bag full of about 85 stickers I want to give to y'all, and we're super stoked to have our own actual host site now. I'm going to keep saying unless you stop
Well,
me.
Rusty, talking in the third person here, Rusty decided to finally get off his hind end and start doing a little more techno stuff. I think I get spurts of it every 3 months or so. So one of them was, actually doing the podcast. One of them was actually setting up all this audio equipment. And one of them was now doing the website, which about puts us at the right number of months.
That's about right. I think we're probably now going to have to dedicate or get back to more advancement more often. But, I mean, one of the things we're super stoked about is to be able to bring y'all streaming, which I think was one of the things we learned from our interaction with people that other people that do podcasts is that sometimes it's a challenge to have to actually download a file versus just being able to stream an episode, which, I mean, in the end, it's harder for us to track how many people are paying attention if it's not downloaded, but we want a wider access to the people who would be interested in listening to it. So being able to stream it is pretty cool. And we have a player on our website where you're going to be able to stream it, whether you're using a laptop or a tablet or a smart device of any other kind. So that's pretty cool. We're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's there's all kinds of cool stuff we can do now that we have our own website. We're not having to worry about anybody else on it and all that. That's what Rusty sounds like sneezing.
Copyright, too.
Yep. So it's all ours now. And like you said, the streaming stuff. We new email addresses if you want to email us, and we'll put this in the end too. But PETM@PETMpodcast.com. And if you want to email any of us individually, I'm Rusty at PETM. I can't even
That's
say
all right.
I'm going to have to get used to it.
We're excited.
Rusty at PETMpodcast.com, and he's Sherwin at PETMpodcast.com.
That's
so
right. We'll get those emails, and we will respond to them. That's the thing is just send us, whatever. Like, you want a sticker? Any of the things you just heard are ways to get a sticker. We'll interact with you and get your address and get those stickers sent out. Like I said, if you're following the
Periscope deal,
it's pretty easy to see. But if you're not following the Periscope, we described it last week. We'll describe it again this week. It's very much like those destination white oval stickers or the I ran this far or biked this far or Iron Man this far.
or drank this much beer.
Yeah, and the picture's on the website. So you just go over there at www.petmpodcast.com. That's a new way to interact with us, and that's probably going to be the preferred way to interact with us, even though we do have both the Twitter and the Facebook.
At the .com. So I don't even know how to transition into NASCAR stuff now. We're like 50 minutes in. But we do have a couple things to talk about. Number one, they have announced who's going to replace Tony for the short term in the number 14 car.
We're on the same page. I was going to say Brian Vickers is a must-hit.
Absolutely. And I can't say enough about when I saw that on Twitter, I just sort of put my hands down and went, whoa, they just trumped everything that I was thinking.
We talked about it for like 10 minutes.
We did.
We got it
said
all
Elliott
wrong.
Sadler. We said Allgaier. And
Sadler, Allgaier, anybody with like strong ties to Chevrolet that's been in a Cup car before.
didn't even bring up Brian Vickers, and
Didn't
so when
think
they
about
drop
it,
it,
we
it
didn't
was
think about his health.
it was right, and it was a mic drop thing, and they said, depending on not depending, but assuming he clears, his medical stuff, and I think it's the coolest thing. Brian Vickers is a cool dude, and just brings a lot of positivity, I guess, despite his adversity and everything. Yeah.
Brian is a class act, and he's been doing a lot of television with NBC, and we just kind of figured that was his thing now. Like, okay, he's probably got a pretty good paying job doing the television thing. No racer ever wants to quit without knowing he can do it. Mm-hmm. And Brian's actually still really young.
Right.
He's only like 32.
Right.
Or maybe he's younger than that. Doesn't matter. He's still very young. He obviously has talent. He won that race at Loudon, and everybody was like, Brian's back. And then he had the second heart issue. And then he came back from that, and he had the third heart issue. And it was like, man, this guy just can't catch a break. What if this is his break?
Yep. Man, I thought it was cool. You thought it was cool. I haven't seen anybody go, oh, they picked Brian Vickers? Like, everybody's on board with this.
I think everybody was like, oh, hell, I didn't even think about that. Brian Vickers being an
You're
option.
right.
That's a damn good option.
You're right. We talked about it with Ryan Ellis a little bit. The green, white checker rule change. Now it's NASCAR overtime. I know he expressed that, and I get where that's coming from. The green, white checkered is a NASCAR or a racing term, and now we're talking NASCAR overtime. I kind of liked it. I don't know what to say. I liked that they're calling it something different. I like that it's really easy. They're applying it to all the tracks. I think it's easy to understand. You got to get to this line. If you don't get to this line, we're doing it again. If you do get to this line, ball game. Whatever happens now. So I'm okay with this.
Yeah,
I
think, I almost always, my initial reaction is that sort of pitchfork mob thing, just make sure I figure out where I'm at. But, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think about plate racing especially, is it's already a gimmick, so why not have the thing that maybe tries to make it less of a gimmick. And then when I heard that they were going to, the line they were talking about making isn't 20 yards past start finish, it's halfway down the backstretch. It's like, yeah, this is better than what we had. And
better than what we had, which was a little bit of subjectivity, I think, especially in Talladega, where it's like, did we run it, or did we not run it, or did we do?
Well, did we get the first good attempt on the second attempt? And that's what we want to try to avoid.
And we talked about it on the podcast, like, well, we could use the start-finish line, but you can't pass before the start-finish line. So was that an attempt if you're not even allowed to pass? I don't know. So now it's clear-cut. I'm liking the rule okay.
Yeah, the only thing I keep getting caught up in, and I think, I don't know if I develop my opinion personally or if I develop it based on personal want and what I read in the media, is that why don't we just use the start-finish line as the go line always, and that's when the green flag stops? Why do we have this zone before? And is that something artificial we're trying to create excitement for our fans that sit on the front stretch?
I don't know.
Like, it almost seems
think
like
there's been
that.
an evolution of things. I think it's been 30 years of well, you can't start till then. All right, well, the race doesn't actually start till then. Okay, well, you can't pass till that. Like, we keep seeing little rules get implemented to now we're at the point where, like, okay, well, they start way the hell back there. And nobody can pass till here, and then is it really a restart? Blah blah blah. So I think this to your point goes back a little bit to say, okay, well we're making it a little bit less ambiguous. So
yeah.
Anyway,
well, I think what it is, and I said this on Twitter earlier today, and I have committed to embracing to this, is what you need to understand about the restart rules in NASCAR is it's always going to be a moving object. Mm-hmm. There is no specific language that's going to clearly, rigidly define every restart in NASCAR. So as long as you can accept the fact that the rules around the restart are going to continue to change and evolve based on what NASCAR and its competitors think is the best way to go about doing it, you're going to be in a much better place. You're not going to be in the pitchfork mob. You're going to be in the, all right, well, let's see what happens group.
So let's talk about charters while we still have about 5 minutes left in this thing. Charters was probably the biggest news, but I would say the biggest news organization-wise, but not necessarily getting the headlines that the casual fan is going to really care about.
How many years ago did we talk about franchising and why that might be good for Cup as they compare themselves to stick and ball?
Right. And so we've also dropped a few cars, too. We're down to 40 cars into a race.
And I think the discussion you and I had, like the biggest contention point, not that we were disagreeing, was, okay, so if you set up NASCAR like it's a franchise of 4-car teams, so you'd have 10 or you have 11. Mm-hmm. So do we have 40 cars or do we have 44 cars?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we have the situation where the number of cars doesn't necessarily matter how big your franchise is, but we only have 36 single-car franchises.
So I usually like to be devil's advocate and say, this isn't going to work because blah, blah. But I really haven't found many people, so I would just be kind of alone if I'm playing devil's advocate. It seems like people are pretty receptive to this thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, my interaction with Brian Keselowski, Brad's older brother, who runs an underfunded Cup team, and or we'll just call it a stock car team. Brian Keselowski runs a stock car team that sometimes finds themselves with the ability to get into a Daytona 500.
I was about to say, weren't they in a plate
and he's
race?
Like, I think this actually works. This seems like a good idea. He's like, because I asked him directly, I said, does this impact the decision of whether or not you try to go down to the Daytona 500 and get in the race? And he goes, no.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, actually, it might make the decision easier because I know who's going down there.
Right.
And I know whether or not I have a better car than them. Like, I'm putting words in his mouth to say that, but that's what I thought he was saying is, if there's only 4 cars that have a chance to get in, we've already seen it, that there's only 42 cars going to Daytona to try to get into the Daytona 500.
Right.
Which means only 2 cars are going home.
And there's 2 cars that can get in via the duels and 2 cars that get in via qualifying or practice or whatever it is.
Yeah, if you win the pole or you win outside pole, you're in.
Mm-hmm.
I would suspect over time that's going to evolve now that we have charters. I would expect they'll change how they do that a little bit in terms of, are the first 2 really locked into position? Does that make sense for what we do?
And the duels don't matter as much right now as I would say they
don't matter nearly as much because when you only start 21 cars in a duel and only the guy that finishes last is not making the race, there doesn't seem to be near as much reason to run the race.
Right. Especially these guys who don't want to tear up their car.
Because it used to be
in order to qualify
27 guys and 28 guys.
Right.
And 13, 14 cars were going home, whatever the math is. And it made a lot more sense to run the race to give a guy a chance to race when we know that what a car does in a single car run at Daytona is super different than what happens in the draft.
Exactly. And these guys, nobody wants to tear their car up in order to – I mean, none of the guys who are obviously going to make the race are going to want to tear their car up trying to just get on the pole when everybody knows that the pole doesn't matter in Daytona. So
not really. Not really at all.
And even starting position doesn't matter all that much. I mean, because some of the guys might even have strategy. We've seen Kyle Busch do it. We've seen Jimmy Johnson do it. Just, all right, well, I qualified 4th. I'm going to go hang out in the back for the next 180 laps. We'll see you later.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see that more at Talladega, but you definitely have.
True.
We've seen it at Daytona now that they've resurfaced.
Yeah,
it's essentially the same race. The only difference is that I think the drivers and the teams are all told, hey, by the way, Daytona 500 gets a lot more eyeballs than just about any other race that we have. So the whole drop into the back thing is not super preferred. I think some of their sponsors have input on that, and I think that's why a lot of times you'll probably not see it.
Yeah,
you may not see it, 9 days from now. But the reality is, the stuff we do at Daytona It's the biggest thing we do in NASCAR every year. We start the year with it, but it's not the meat of what stock car racing is.
But either way, Daytona Day coming up next week.
Hell yeah, hashtag Daytona Day.
That's right.
Woo!
Let's start closing this thing out.
Yeah, let's do it.
And man,
before I say something you get mad at me for,
it ain't gonna happen this time. But man, that was.
Oh, I want to. Did I
cool
shout out to NASFARC podcast already? If I have,
I think you did on the pre-show. I'm not sure on the
that's
show.
Right.
Go
I
ahead.
Do it on the show at all caps NASFARK podcast, NASFARC podcast. I listened to it. Cool. Drunken Brian France, thank you so much. Drunk Brian F for getting us in touch with Ryan Ellis, and at Ryan Ellis Racing, thank you so much for joining us today.
Ryan Ellis Racing, that was so cool. And guys, contact us. The new website, PETMpodcast.com, and you can email us at PETM@PETMpodcast.com.
Yeah,
it's a real deal now. So, as always, I'm Tailgate Mayor at Tailgate Mayor.
And I'm Andrew Sherwin at Pregame Engineer. Thanks for listening, y'all.
Something like that. It don't matter.
Yeah, pregame. It's Pregame ENG. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The producer's laughing at us. Here we go. We're trying to close this thing out.
Up.
We'll talk to y'all next week.
Woo. Too distracted by having such a